That was the President of the United States, Joseph Robinette Biden, holding a very spirited campaign rally in Detroit, Michigan tonight. We just took that live, clocking in around 30 minutes before a exuberant crowd. I am Chris Hayes here in New York. I'm joined by my colleague Joy Reid, of course, the host of The ReidOut, just before me. And Joy, I want to first get my first read on this. And again, I think we've been honest throughout about the various performances we've seen from this president, from the debate, the Stephanopoulos interview, to the press conference. You know, that was by far, I think, the best performance he's given since the State of the Union, and looked like that's the Joe Biden that has been a very successful politician and won in 2020.
I will say this: it was the best performance we've seen actually since the Waffle House a half an hour after that disastrous debate. And the reason I throw the Waffle House in there is that a half an hour after that performance, he walked into a Waffle House in Atlanta and came alive. You know why?
Right.
Because there were people in there. Whoever on the Biden staff made the deal to have him do a debate with no crowd and no people to respond and to bounce off of, that person should reevaluate their entire career. Because Joe Biden, in all of my observations of him, I have seen him, witnessed him, particularly in a black church, he comes alive. In front of a crowd, he comes alive. It is people that make Joe Biden come alive. That was a demonstration of it. Whatever hoarse voice he even had yesterday in front of the press when he did that really well done, brilliantly done press conference, a whole 49 minutes of policy talk, did a great job. Couple of Biden gaffes, but that's Biden. He's just Biden. But in this crowd, I don't know if it was Pastor Cindy Rudolph prayed over him before he started, or he just had the right oatmeal this morning with the right ingredients. But that Joe Biden is the Joe Biden you get when there are people, when there is a crowd, when he can bounce off of the energy of people. That is what he actually needs in order to come alive. And so I think what we've learned is that two things actually help Biden thrive. People, a crowd, that energy, but also conflict. Everyone has come at this man. The congressional caucus, not the black caucus, but everybody else, the white Democratic, the white Democrats have come at him. The donors have come at him, said, we're taking your $90 million. We won't even pay until you go away. The Hollywood crowd have come at him and said, unless you go, we're going to stop helping you. We're not even going to help this campaign. All of what you would call the elite came at Joe Biden. And what happened? Joe Biden woke up. The conflict and the understandable, stress that you've seen among Democrats, but the really kind of ridiculous public war of Democrats against their own president seems to have been the thing that he needed to catch fire. And just very quickly, the things that he did tonight that I thought were very smart, laying out his first 100 days in which he talked about restoring Roe v. Wade, talked about the Voting Rights Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, something he wasn't able to get done without a Democratic Senate, making the child tax credit permanent, which is going to help against poverty. He touted the fact that he took something very important, taking credit debt off of your credit report, game-changing. He said he's going to expand that, get rid of medical debt. Raising the federal minimum wage, a huge and important thing that civil rights leaders like Bishop William Barber have been calling on him to do. So he came out and he gave an agenda. I thought that was important. And then also going on the attack against Trump. He called Trump Putin's puppy. He called him a convicted criminal. He quoted the judge in saying not just sexual assault, he raped E. Jean Carroll. He said he went bankrupt trying to run a casino, didn't know you could do that. Then when he got protested, he responded by allowing the protests to happen, sobering up, taking a moment, and then touting his deal to end the war between Hamas and the Israelis. This was well done. I can't say anything other than that's the Joe Biden who I think Democrats who might be nervous needed to see. And for Democrats who doubted him, that was the come at me, bro, Joe Biden. He ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll see. I mean, the future remains unwritten. I think he is dead set on not going anywhere.
Nope.
He was, to me, that was also the most comprehensive thesis of the campaign. Like, we haven't, since the State of the Union, that was like, it's like, what's the campaign? It's like, that's the campaign. That speech is the campaign.
Yeah.
It's 30 minutes. It's Joe Biden Joe Biden has a strong record. Joe Biden has a vision for the future. Your point about the next 100 days. And Donald Trump is a menace. And the contrast, Donald Trump is a menace, sort of just completely unloading on the guy in every possible way. January 6th, sexual assault. And then here's what I've done and here's what I'm going to do. Those three pillars. The guy's a menace.
Yes.
Here's what we've done. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what our shared values are. That is a comprehensive 30 minutes. That's the campaign. That's the first time, I think. And we've seen ads. We've seen events. It's not like there haven't been.
Yeah.
But that is the tight 30, as they would say in stand-up. Like, that's the campaign right there. I think we sort of saw for the first time today.
It is. And I think it was important also because he's in Detroit, and this is a must-win state. It has to happen, right? You saw that multiracial crowd behind him. That is the demographics that have to come out, right? It has been African Americans, it's been black folks who have been solidly with Joe Biden all throughout these whole 2 weeks of Sturm und Drang inside of the party. But I think that what he understood tonight, as you've said, is that it's not just about bragging about the past. It is about whether or not this is somebody who can manage the future. Because this presidential campaign is partly about what he's accomplished, but it's partly about whether he can handle moving forward, moving the ball forward, moving the ball down the field in a football analogy. What he did tonight is say, here are my plays. I'm going to go ahead and telegraph. These are the plays. If you put me back on, put me in, coach, put me back in, this is what I'm going to do for you. Yeah, these are my deliverables. And I think it was important to have those deliverables be about the working class, be about the people that he is trying to keep on side and get on side. It is those union workers. It is those working class people of color and white Americans. It's people who are saying, I can't afford my rent. He said they're going to go after these high rents that he then points out who the villain is. These, hedge funds, et cetera, that are buying up all that property. He says, we're going to do that. We're going to cap rent increases. Huge. It's a huge problem, particularly among younger voters who are stressed in terms of their finances. Capping insulin for every American, the $35 insulin you got for seniors. He said, I'm going to do that for the rest of you. That child tax cut becoming permanent. That's actually game-changing economically. If you are going to win an election, what you have to do is convince people that there's a point to coming out and voting, that I'm not just voting for your ego or to give you a legacy. I'm voting for me. What am I getting for myself? What do I get out of this deal? That first 100 days argument is the what I'm going to get you if you come through for me. That was important to do.
This elections are about the future. We've been saying this all the time, but it's so important and so true. And I think it has been a bit missing in all the campaign stuff, even in the discussion of the record, which is, as we report on my show all the time, quite good. It's about the future. Joy Reid, thanks for sticking around.
Indeed.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.